Please welcome the curator of the de Grummond Children's Literature Collection, Ellen Ruffin.
Thank you. Welcome to the EJK Silent Auction Soiree. It's already been a very busy day, fabulous award ceremony, a panel this afternoon, and now beautiful artwork, incredible illustrators, and our renowned and fun EJK Award luminaries. Please welcome Deborah Pope, the Executive Director of the Ezra Jack Keats Foundation. Deborah?
I agree, Ellen. The 35th anniversary ceremony was wonderful. It was all that we'd hoped it would be. And it was wonderful to see the panel again. And thank you, Oge, Cherry, and Phoebe, for that wonderful discussion. As for the ceremony, we are so thankful to the winners and the honorees of this year's awards for their warm and eloquent speeches. We hope, as always, that the award brings them, each of them, the attention they richly deserve. Most of all, we hope that it encourages them to continue their work. In the end, that's what the award and all of our hard work is about: to encourage writers, illustrators, and publishers to create more books that reflect the lives of children of different backgrounds and cultures. Books in the tradition of the snowy day. Works that transcend social boundaries, celebrate differences, and speak to the universal qualities of childhood. As we've seen during the pandemic, technology has enabled us to connect on a global scale. As the world has gotten smaller, more artists can share their cultures and perspectives internationally than ever before. And children's books have an essential role to play in bridging different cultures and creating understanding. In that spirit, we are thrilled to share with you the work of 28 incredible and diverse artists in our 35th anniversary silent auction. Each of these artists has donated original illustrations that you, our audience, can buy and display in your home. I should emphasize, and I want to emphasize, that the monies raised today will go toward monetary prizes for future EJK Award winners and honorees. Promising new artists need more than applause. They need support. And it's our intent moving forward that the EJK Award provide greater financial rewards for our winners and for the first time be able to provide monetary awards for our honorees. There is unfortunately no time to name all the contributing artists, but I want to collectively thank you for generously giving your time and your talent for this important cause. I appreciate you more than I can say. You'll see the selected artwork on the side of your screen, and to look more closely at the pieces and start bidding, simply select Auction and click the images of the work you want to purchase. You'll hear from many of these artists in the next hour. And one more thing, while this is officially an auction, you also might think of it as a artist soiree, because in addition to the opportunity to purchase incredible artwork, you'll have the chance to visit with the creators, hear some incredible stories, and hear the brightest stars from the kidlit world talk about their craft. Here's Ellen, back to tell us more about how to participate in the bidding and introduce our fabulous guests.
Okay, before we introduce you to our incredible celebs, a few notes. The auction will end tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So bid, bid, bid until 10 p.m., 9 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. on down the line. A very special note. One of our lucky bidders or donors will be selected to be the recipient of one limited edition museum quality EJK print. This is from the collection of 7 prints of Ezra's book art available from the Michelson Gallery. Aren't they fabulous? From the snowy day to Jenny's hat, we are excited to offer that this evening. But back to the works for the auction. We are taking bids for all of the pieces as well as donations throughout the event. Look on the left side of your screen to register, bid, donate. You'll also find detailed information about each of the pieces if you click in each box. We appreciate your commitment and support. And tonight, there's the added bonus of taking home a piece of art. Well, it will be shipped to your home. And finally, any pieces not sold will be donated to the de Grummond Children's Literature Collection. So really, I don't want them to be sold. Forget what I said. Don't bid. Just kidding. Deborah?
Ellen and I are going to go off stage now, but we'll be back to wrap up the evening. Let's bring up Rich Michelson now. Rich is a children's book writer and award winner himself, and he owns the R. Michelson Galleries in Northampton, Massachusetts, and anybody interested in children's illustration knows his gallery and his artists. Several of the artists in tonight's auction are represented by him. Rich.
Well, thank you, Deborah and Ellen. It is an absolute honor for me to be here for this auspicious occasion. For the first time in a year, I have actually gotten dressed, although I will not stand up, I promise you, because there are sweatpants under this outfit. One of the reasons I'm so excited to be here with you tonight is that Ezra Jack Keats was important in my life, and in fact, the first illustrator that I came in contact with. I was honored to be able to speak to so many of the artists, not all of them, but you will hear some of my conversation about the pieces that you'll be looking at. Again, you can check out the items on the left side of your screen. Consider taking one home with you. I'm looking forward to shipping it to your address. Click on each item to see more details. And even though I am here as kind of your MC, I am going to tell you that you're going to be bidding against me tonight for quite a lot of these items. And so you should bid as high as you can, because I promise you that if I get the item, I'm going to charge you more when you try to buy it at the gallery. So now's your chance to undercut me, bid on every item. It's for a good cause. And I'm happy to introduce my co-hosts for the evening and friends, and also some of the most important people in the children's book community. Pat Cummings, Paul Zielinski, and Carmen Agradidi. These are the top of the field, folks. So listen in. We're all going to be discussing. Carmen, of course, has 4 Emmys. Her award-winning show, Love That Book. And of course, you might have heard her on NPR, where she does wonderful commentary. And Pat Cummings, who has influenced probably more illustrators than anyone I know. You're both through your books and your teaching, you've just been so important to the industry. And Paul O. Zielinski.
Hi.
Of the great illustrators of our time. And we were going to talk a little bit more about Paul's work and Pat's work later when we see their work on screen. We're going to jump right into seeing some of the artwork. The piece that has been used to advertise this auction by Matt James is actually from a book about a funeral, but the storyline is about the joy found in appreciating someone you love. The tenor of this book's illustrations portray the powerful exuberance and affirmation of a child's experience of a funeral, and in a sense, turns that experience on its head in a very lovely way. What's the difference between a cartwheel and a somersault?
Oh, yeah. Because I called it did I call it a somersault? I think I did. Yeah. And that was just me forgetting that it's clearly a cartwheel. Yeah, but I called it a somersault, and then I thought, well, you know, if I've confused somebody or been a bit ambiguous, the book that this comes from, The Funeral, has quite a bit of ambiguity to it. It's the story of Norma and Ray, and those were my grandparents' names. They were just really important people in my life. They were like a second set of parents. As soon as I stuck my grandparents' names, I had this extra love for the characters, which I feel like comes out.
So you can own that absolutely wonderful Matt James piece. Once you own it, you can title it whatever you like. It's yours, okay? We don't even have to tell Matt the new title. But that's going to look absolutely beautiful in your home.
It's so alive. I think that's what I love about that piece so much.
There's a funny thing about the title of the book too. You know, this is called The Funeral, and if you look at it carefully, the FUN is a different color from ERAL, and it's the fun in there as well, sort of hidden in the funeral.
Very ironic contrast. You know, it's very exuberant, very lively.
I think important to know that what you're bidding on isn't a piece of paper this size, and it's really something hefty, and it's got that energy, and it must be all the more you know, effective when it's big and real. Is it acrylic?
Yes, it's acrylic paint and Indian ink on masonite. It looks great. When I first saw it, the figure I thought was actually collaged on it jumps out. It really does. It's almost like it's cartwheeling out of the paint. You know, it really does have that energy. So let's look at some more art, and we're gonna take the topic of nature. Nature as exemplified in the works by Aaron Meshon, Jenny Sue Kostecki, Marissa Bina Russo, and then you'll see some other pieces by Doug Salati, Haewon Yum, and Taeyeon Yu. So I look forward to talking with my co-hosts here on the other side. How did you play with your color palette in this?
As much as I try to do like a new color palette, it always ends up basically the same, but I did purchase many different new greens. There's water in every page, tying them together, and I really tried to make that exactly the same blue.
The pinks in this piece, I must say, are just gorgeous. I mean,
Thank you. The smoke is right out of the tube.
My family and I went and camped for 2 whole weeks in the redwood forest. I remember laying on the forest floor, and it was damp and so soft, and looking up and staring up into the bark, like the grooves up Luna's trunk, and then eventually it disappeared into the canopy, and you could see all these creatures and different things that formed out of the grooves of the trunk.
The story takes place in the city, and generally the birds I see when I'm walking around are little gray sparrows, and that's where the inspiration came from, which is another part of the story. But I realized that the color was too muted for the picture, and I wanted him to stand out more. And there were a lot of pictures where he's very tiny. So it did evolve. I brought an illustration out to show you because I think it's interesting to see that that's what he looks like in the actual book. Very, very pinkish.
Well, that was a wonderful collection, you know, particularly after being locked inside for about a year. Seeing the outdoors was just lovely, and all the colors, it's like an explosion of color. It was lovely, and it reminds you that, you know, when we get back out there, you know, it's a whole wide world.
And Kostecki Shaw's Luna and me had 2 extra nickels to rub together. I'm bidding right now. I mean, anyway, but
and that's a large piece too. Is actually 2 feet high. So when you check on the auction, make sure you look at the sizes, because some of these really take up a wall. When they're looking at that piece, it's like you're lying on the floor looking up into the leaves. It really is amazing. All these pieces. I mean, when they came into the gallery, I was just amazed by the quality of the work of what people are donating. And I think that says something about how important the EJK Keats Foundation was to so many of these artists. It jump-started their careers in many cases. And in a lot of these cases, you're still buying this art when these people are still building their careers, and now's the time to grab it.
The track record of Ezra Jack Keats winners is really phenomenal. How many of them have gone on to become really noted illustrators and writers of children's books. Everybody all the artists who contributed to this auction were either honor winners or award winners for illustration of this award itself, or they served on the committee.
And they're almost, you're correct, always seems like on the ascendant as when they're nabbed for this award. And the award only seems to give them a stronger foothold, you know, in this world. And I've just loved this particular grouping because, like Pat said, we've all been cooped up, and these exquisite just images of colored pink clouds and redwoods. And I also loved the one with the small bird.
I have to say that I really loved Doug Salati's drawing. It's phenomenal sense of line and design.
This is an amazing piece. Ewan has actually 4 books coming out this year in 2021, so she's busy. She's in demand. It's a gorgeous piece. These are the end papers from one of her books. I just love end papers. I think that I love artists who really pay attention to their end papers like this. I just think it starts the story of the book before you even get to the title page.
Well, I'm a dog lover. I just want those end papers. I think this is a really exquisite piece, and it could go anywhere.
One of the things I loved about Taeyoon's work is she uses a very controlled palette. And I think her work has been stunning from the beginning. She used to be my intern, and she was working on her first book, which was, I think, Little Red Fish. And it was so sophisticated and such a controlled palette that I thought, I don't know, for kids, it's awfully sophisticated. And it was beautiful.
The next section, we're going to show you artists who use collage, all sorts of collage. I mean, varied papers. We even have Robert Watkins using marshmallows in his collages. Maybe if you buy that piece, ask, and maybe we'll send you some marshmallows as well. Some of the amazing collage artists you're about to see: Misha Archer, Melissa Swee, Christian Robinson, Christopher Myers, Oge Mora, Kate Reed, Robert Watkins. It's absolutely amazing work. And we're going to start out with my dear friend, Brian Collier. I've been honored to represent his work in the gallery for many years, and he's a pleasure to know. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about how his grandparents' quilting influenced his work.
Being influenced by my grandmother making quilts, the collage became important. The passages of the different colors, the way she put them together. And we never really had like this aesthetic talk about the quilt. It was something that she did, and it was functional. It was put on the bed, it was functional, but I bore witness to it. And it sort of got into my system and it grew. It was like a silent gift or a seed that was planted. And it was nonverbal. And then one day it was ignited. And it came in the form of watercolor and then the collage for me. I saw the visual connection. I noticed the details that she had put in the quilts, and I noticed the details that I was making with these collages. And it was not a conscious effort. It was just something that grew, was ignited, and it bloomed through my work.
That's beautiful. And one of the things I love about your work is that you can look at it forever and always find little details. You know, you first see the picture, then you narrow down on little sections, and everything just fits together so beautifully.
Collage to me is so versatile, and I get to have the whole stage where I make the papers, which to me is like using a whole nother side of my brain, where I get to just sort of relax and create papers. And so I create my own stamps out of just a block of wood, and this is just rubber bands. So I just take blocks of woods and put all kinds of things on it. This is just cardboard cut in a strip and rolled on there. And then I stamp them and create all kinds of fun paper to work with. So I have drawers and drawers of paper. And so once I've got my composition down, I can just start pulling open drawers and just sort of using the serendipity of what the paper does when I lay it down next to another paper. So it's really challenging, but I think it's also what keeps me interested in continuing.
Do you know that your mother was my son's preschool teacher?
I know. She actually influenced the Daniel Funzo poem book because I know that she used to do a lot of drama in the classrooms where they would act out books. So when I was creating this book, I kept thinking, what would teachers like to have that where kids could act out? I was thinking about what teachers love and what they need in the classroom.
I do feel as if I'm a magnet for something different each time. And that's kind of the fun of being an illustrator, is really not just challenging myself, but to get a story like this one, Little Red Riding. That's what I love, is when I don't quite know how to do something and I'm going to figure it out. That just makes me grow.
Well, each of your books is so different than the one before, and yet there's a through line. I mean, you can tell that it's a Melissa Sweet book.
I started out with painting, and materials were always interesting to me. So however I wanted to introduce materials was fun. And then the collage elements were also intriguing because they add another element that really can't be painted. And what I love to show kids is that when you look at my early work, Pinky and Rex, and you look at it now, you can see the evolution of 30 years of making art. And I tell them, wasn't that great at drawing. I wasn't that great at anything really, but I had a lot of passion and I was determined to be a published illustrator.
Those were amazing pieces. I'm going to say, if anybody is interested in coming to our site and looking at some of Brian's other work, anything you buy in the next couple of weeks and you tell me you saw the Treasure Jack Keats Foundation video here, if you get another Brian Collier, we will donate 20% of the price to the foundation. So that gives you a chance to look at his other work, have an amazing piece on your wall, and help the Keats Foundation. So that just popped into my head. I hope I don't regret it.
That's very generous of you. Yeah, I want to say this is one of my favorite collections. I love the way that you group these, because collage is so exciting. It's so close to play. I love the fact that all of these artists are working in a similar niche with collage, but it's so different, and it's so exciting. Marshmallows? Come on.
They are beautiful. Talk about visual information in Misha's pieces, which is gorgeous. And I think it's one of the key pieces that's from her award-winning book for illustration in 2017.
Christian Robinson's piece, it's an absolutely beautiful piece. That's a study for a book. If that's what his studies look like, he is just absolutely gorgeous. That's a piece that I'm going to be bidding on. I can tell you that. I love it. So you should know that Oge does not sell her original artwork. This is very rare to have this piece that she gave to the Keats Foundation. It is from Share Your Rainbow, which is a compilation of work by many artists. This is special. This is a good chance for you to own an original Oge Mora piece.
Well, it's interesting, Rich, because the several that I loved, but that is my favorite. And I think being the writer, the only non-artist, my response is sort of just more visceral. I looked at it, I thought, I know what it feels like to have that child, to be that child. It's extraordinary to see how exquisitely they maneuver bits of and bobs of paper to create these things that make you feel when you look at them.
On this list, there's some people who are absolute masters of shape and the design and composition that that's in Oge's thing, that's in Christian Robinson's, incredible. What has won them the Keats Awards is exactly what you're saying, that they can take this, here's a shape, here's a circle, and here's an oval, and they put them in just the right place. But my God, that is the feeling of the hug. That's the incredible duality that they manage.
These folks are going to be around. Their careers are only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So from a collector's point of view, yeah, I'm with you, Carmen. It's like I'm going to have to dip into the piggy bank. You know,
Melissa Sweet, I mean,
It's incredible.
she has just proven book after book after book that she knows exactly how to capture the heart of each book.
And wasn't it extraordinary to hear her say, I wasn't very good at art. I wasn't really very good at anything. And I just wanted to reach in and go.
Christopher Meyer's piece, he does so many different things, both in illustration, the fine art world. He comes from an important family in the children's illustration world. His father was Walter Dean Myers. It's just wonderful to see that talent passed down, find different avenues to explode. And I love this piece. I really do. With us today, Andrea Davis Pinkney, who does, well, everything. A wonderful, amazing, award-winning children's book writer, one of the great editors of our time. Andrea just curated her very first show at the Eric Carle Museum, which I hope some of you get a chance to see. Picture the Dream, the story of the civil rights movement. And she is wife to Brian Pinkney and daughter-in-law to Jerry Pinkney and to Gloria Jean Pinkney. These people have just altogether made such an impact on the world and on the children's book world. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Andrea has to say.
Rich, thank you so much for that introduction. Pat, Carmen, Paul, nice to be with you in this space. And welcome everyone to the Ezra Jack Keats Award silent auction. This is a beautiful moment because think about it. When kids see themselves in children's books, all ages, races, faces, perspectives, that is a beautiful landscape that unfolds before us. You know, imagine a world that had no mirrors in it. Imagine a world that had no windows. If I were a child, I would never see my beautiful face reflected. There would be no sunlight coming in. And that's what the Ezra Jack Keats Award does. It brings new talent into the fold. It invites a diverse group of creators to express their creativity, to show kids themselves, to hold up that mirror, to bring sunlight into that window. So now is the moment, through this silent auction, that you can pay it forward. By supporting the silent auction, you support the monetary prizes that the award winners receive so that diverse authors can continue to do their work. So now's the moment. Support the silent auction, pay it forward. You're gonna get a beautiful piece of artwork, and you're gonna know that you are impacting the teachers, the doctors, the creators, the artists of tomorrow through the books that you're helping support today. So pay it forward, support the silent auction. Congratulations to the Ezra Jack Keats Award on 35 years of bringing talent, color, and beauty into the fold. And thank you and enjoy. Rich, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Andrea. And when we talk about imagination and the future, I don't know that any of us knows what's coming. We see a great growth in artists working digitally, and it has been a boon to so many artists. I can't say that I'm thrilled about not having the actual piece to sell anymore, but I cannot argue with the fact that digital has created an amazing opportunities for artists, And we are going to look right now at the work of two artists who are using it to their highest advantage, Nina Cruz and Don Tate.
It's all assembled on the computer. So what you have here are a lot of layers of both photography, a little bit of drawing for the people, the crowd scene, and some things that are just so easy to create digitally, like the stars themselves and the shapes that the sky is in. So it's a real combination of all three.
I've been working digitally pretty much for the past, I don't know, almost 30 years. But I had been reluctant to mess around with the iPad. I finally got an iPad and I just kind of fell in love with it. And that's pretty much what I do when I'm sitting around the house now, is I'm on my iPad, I'm sketching. It was the inauguration day and Amanda Gordon was introduced. She recited this phenomenal poem. I was inspired by her words, of course, but it was this young African-American lady. She was confident, she was poised, she was beautiful. The light just, glimmered off of her skin. And I thought, I just want to draw her. I drew her, I put it on Instagram, I put it on Twitter. And it's funny because typically on Twitter, I'm lucky if I get maybe 10 responses on something, right? So after like an hour, I had 300. And a few hours later, there's like 8,000. And by the end of the day, it was over 21,000 shares and comments, and reporters were reaching out to me. They wanted to do segments, and so all of these really beautiful things came out of a beautiful moment.
So Don has graciously allowed us to print, and he will sign 100 special edition of this print for the Ezra Jack Keats Foundation. Now, let me tell you folks, you just heard 21,000 people were interested in this image. That's 21,000, okay? Maybe we should have done an edition of 21,000. Could you imagine $100 each? I think that would help. But we are limiting this for you. And this is not a bid. 100 people can have it for $100. Now, you donate $100. This is like, supporting your local organization, and look what you're getting in exchange, right? So now's your chance. Go to the screen, click on that image.
Oh, it's just so vibrant. And she was so vibrant. I'm in for one Amanda.
Speaking of that, Don Tate, of all people, has been on the committee, as well as having won the honor for writing. And then I think a couple of years later, he won the award for writing.
What I love is both he and Nina, right? They capture exactly what is important to them right this minute. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit of history that they're putting on paper, but it's also so personal. I love, for example, that Nina uses like kids in her neighborhood as models and can put them into these fantastic settings, but they're real kids. Can you imagine seeing yourself in a book like that? You know what I mean? You might end up on top of a skyscraper.
Rich, you could also say that Nina is from quite a pedigree of children's book illustrators.
A very esteemed family. And
her mother was Ann Jonas, the illustrator and author, and her father is Donald Cruz, who's phenomenally popular with his picture books.
It's wonderful to see how the generations pick up and end up in the same career, but find their own voice. That's what's really, really nice to see. Let's move on to our next session, where we are going to see artwork by Pat Cummings and Paul Zielinski.
Okay, so you have no idea how much cake had to be consumed just to get in the mood to do the reference work, for this. It was fun to do, because it was a story about a grandmother, which is an odd topic. For me, it was an odd topic to be focused on, a grandmother and her birthday celebration.
Oh, it's so joyful. It is just so, and the colors. And I love the Nana.
Thank you.
Colors really pop on this. I mean, when this came through the gallery, it just lit up the space. Absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, well, thank you. I always talk to my students about how do you separate the reality of a story from the fantasy that they're talking about. You know, that's always a challenge. And some people will do it by changing the palette, which is what I thought was necessary because I didn't want to do like a bubble, a thought bubble or something. So it was a change in palette and going to like really lighter, sunnier colors than the reality.
Well, and the transition's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love the patterns too. Do you think a lot about what the people are wearing, or does it just, when you're drawing pants, do the ladybugs just appear?
Sometimes they do. It might have been that garden. The patterns are so important because, or just the outfits, because, you know, particularly when I'm teaching, it makes me crazy if kids come in and they're drawing everybody in these generic t-shirt and jeans, you know, or I have some students that draw kids in pinafores, like Alice in Wonderland. And I'm like, what?
What shirt are you wearing today, Paul?
Oh, this shirt belongs to my picture book, Z is for Moose, which was written by Kelly Bingham. And this shirt has all the pages kind of changed a little bit from with the book about the moose. So if you can see, it's an alphabet book with snake and ball and moose.
This is so intricate. I want to know all the stories behind all that.
This is totally outside of my conscious control, and I don't know. So often things appear that I've been thinking about or drawing about or seen. There are cats in there because I recently finished the decorations for a middle grade novel called Da Vinci's Cat, and it's got a whole lot of cats. The sort of Pulcinello character at the top, I have no idea. And the guy who is walking, striding forward through this, it's so...
like visual stream of consciousness or something, Paul.
That's exactly what it is. But I can't keep a piece of paper clean, you know? I just can't do it. I have a file drawer, and someday, you know, I would show them, but I don't have a...
Oh, a compendium of my subconscious thoughts on paper?
You have an open invitation from me to do an exhibit of your doodles. So
oh,
you're ready?
Yeah. Oh,
thank you, Rich.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Brilliant is right. So folks, this is the chance to get this incredible doodle by Mr. Zielinski tonight before the gallery opening, which is going to be a lot costlier.
Good point. Very good point.
Well, thank you, Pat and Paul. It's wonderful hearing artists discuss their work, isn't it? That's one of the wonderful things about this soiree, is we get to see the art, we get to hear about it, and you, lucky people, get to take it home. So let's move on now to the medium of printmaking. And you are going to see and hear about lithography, serigraphs, lino cuts, monotypes. I mean, so many artists choose to work in different medium, and every medium seems to have its own personality. And oftentimes, artists will choose to explore different mediums. So let's look at some of the artists that I got to talk to and see why and how they created their art.
I have been drawn to it because it creates a really kind of magical feeling atmosphere pretty easily. And it's something that I can do. I have an etching press, so it's something that I can easily do in my studio. I use one of those like a lino soft plates that you can carve just as my plate. And I'll actually like paint and spread ink on the plate and then run it through the press. And as it runs through the press with the paper, it kind of can do some unpredictable things. And so that's the technique I use for the backgrounds. And then the line work is actually also monoprint, but done using a technique where I put it under a piece of glass and will paint on the glass and then manually rub the paper down onto what I've painted.
This is a reduction lino cut?
Yes. So I don't have the original, I don't have any of the plates because once that last layer was made, it was tossed, but I did bring just another lino cut plate from a personal piece. So you can just see, and the audience can see kind of what that looks like. Lots and lots of carving.
Right. So what I think most people don't understand with reduction is that you can't go back and fix mistakes.
Fortunately, with technology now, I'm able to do really detailed preliminary studies digitally. And so I'm able to create each layer in like Photoshop or Procreate and then stack them on top, and it really replicates the process. So I'll carve the first layer based on what I've planned in Photoshop, print that, and then so on and so forth.
So I think what a lot of people might not realize is that every color that's on here is a different layer.
Right.
And you cut away the layer before, so you can't then go back and add it on. Every stage, you lose what you had previously on the block.
Exactly. And in some cases, you'll end up with nothing on the plate when you're done, depending on what you're printing, maybe like one little star or something like that.
So I have to make a separate stencil for every color, and you make them on this frame covered in fabric. And I do it by painting each stencil onto the screen by hand.
Every piece is hand done.
Yeah.
There's slight differences, which are wonderful to see. And so I want people to realize that what they're getting here is a unique piece of art.
The quality of line that you get when you're drawing directly on a stone with an oil crayon, they look like this. There's a bunch of oil in the crayon. You draw your design directly onto a big, heavy piece of limestone that you've ground down with metal grit. You draw with an oil crayon your image onto the stone, and then it goes through a series of processings. And I did a limited run of prints, so there are 6 prints just in black and white on this very heavy paper. You can get it wet over and over again and really play with wet media, with bleeds and washes. And then each of the run of 6 lithographs I hand painted differently. So all the color you're seeing is watercolor. Trying to achieve that kind of electric, breathtaking, pink sky that you get when the sun is coming up over snow. So the whiteness of the snow is reflecting whatever the sky is doing.
So those were some amazing, absolutely amazing original print works by Jessica Love, Chandra Strickland, Daisy Hurst, E.B. Goodale. And we also have a print by Sophie Blackwell, who is known to so many of you. 2 Caldecott medals in 3 years. I think that's pretty good. Sophie's piece is actually a watercolor that she did for a catalog cover, but for the EJK Keats Foundation, she printed one unique piece. It is here. You can own it. You can have a Sophie Blackwell hanging on your wall. You can have any of these prints hanging on your wall. Now's your time to go back, bid higher, and let's talk a little bit about what you've just seen. Wasn't it amazing to see the talent?
Incredible to think about the processes too, because that's a lot of work, printmaking particularly. I'm thinking that you have to really know where you're headed when you're working with those kind of screens.
A reduction. I loved Chandra's picture. That was just fantastic. Boy, did she do a great job.
I worked with her when she was a student at SVA and on her first book. And it was amazing to me to see all the different techniques that she's tried. And that most of these artists, they keep pushing themselves because every story that you get is going to be a different story. And so people react to them differently. And you may be sitting there thinking, this one feels like pastel, or this one feels like collage or whatever. And I love that people step up to the plate and take it on.
These examples, they're wonderful and a surprise. Frankly, I didn't know any of them were done in printmaking. Daisy Hurst's wonderful pictures. I just love them. She's just so funny and creative. That first picture that E.B. Goodale did, that was a monoprint, really fantastic.
The other thing too, is it can come out looking like a relatively simple image, but I remember taking lithography in college and it was a day-long process. You had to wait for those things to be etched in and you had to run a very heavy stone through the press. Do you know what I mean? It was not the sort of thing you could do the night before it was due.
And for me, certainly, as I look at a piece, because I know that with writing, it's like this, you may see a finished piece, but you don't know that for that little picture book where there were 827 words, this is the 19th iteration or the 32nd.
Right.
And the same with art, of course, but there were some of these things are fascinating.
Well, I was walking down the sidewalk, by the way, recently, and there were these marks of dried leaves that had been sitting under garbage bags for like a week, and then they moved the garbage bags and everything flew away, but there were these prints of the leaves. It was beautiful in the cement. And that is really what lithography is. It's, you know, transmitting an image.
That is what the artist's eye is.
Did you photograph it?
I did.
We're going to talk a little bit about representation in art. I think that's certainly the buzzword of the day, windows and mirrors. Kids should see themselves in their art, and I think that all of us need that. All of us need to know that our stories are important, that other people are writing about people like us as well. We need to learn about other people, and so many of the artists who have won the Ezra Jack Keats Award. Well, I mean, you know, that's the mission here, folks, is to help develop these young artists who are building their voice so that the next generation is not so limited as my generation was. They can see themselves. They can go lots of places. So we're going to look at some work by Mike Curato, who I'm also honored to represent here, Jessica Bagley, Bianca Diaz. Let's take a look and hear what they have to say.
I didn't have a book like Flamer growing up. I was a chubby, still am half Asian, half white mixed person. And I never saw myself in books or on screen. And that's always been a consideration while I've been creating my work, is to get some representation, especially for queer identified or questioning youth who are very underserved in literature.
Daisy was really pulled from my feelings growing up as a child who was often the only Black child in my school. It was all very, very white. And I always felt different. I always felt other. I always felt like I was never as pretty or, you know, the same as everybody else. And so there's a lot of Daisy in, like a lot of Daisy in me and a lot of me in Daisy, and how in the story she finds her own, you know, things to like really find love and joy in. Her passion is collecting things and finding things, where mine was art, you know, and stories and books. And there's an evolution that Daisy sort of goes through in the book, where she's very sort of like shy and self-conscious, and she finds her way and she finds her rhythm by doing the things that she loves. So that at the end of the book, you know, she holds her head up high and she really like feels, you know, joyful about herself. So I wanted to sort of make a piece that would be sort of like a follow-up, like, where do we see Daisy now? And it's like she's sitting with joy and she's looking, you know, and the water, you know, her reflection, and she's got a bunch of daisies. So I just wanted to make a joyful piece that sort of brought me back to the project, that sort of echoed the themes in the book.
I really love the Snow Queen. I want to do like a reimagining of the story. Little robber girl is part of it, so this one's like kind of scarier. In the Snow Queen, they talk about it's like a terrace that the girl and her friend go out onto, and it just kind of reminded me of a fire escape. Like that was my parallel, like growing up in Chicago in Pilsen, which is like a largely Mexican American neighborhood.
Wonderful work, absolutely wonderful work. Flamer was also done on digitally, and so I do have his other work here. When that book came out, I begged him for some drawings. I said, Mike, give me some drawings for our show this year. But he was busy. He was on to his next project. And here I see, okay, he does a drawing. So you're bidding against me, folks. Let me tell you, you're going to go high. This is the only piece from that book that is available. And it's an important book. It's a great book. And now's your chance to bid. I will also say, just because I did before and I don't want to cut out other people, if you're interested in other works of Mike, I will say as well, for the next couple of weeks, if you mention that you've watched this broadcast, we'll also donate 20% of any sales to the Ezra Jack Keats Foundation of Mike's work. But here's your chance to get a piece from Flamer. Amazing book.
The thing I love about these artists, the ones particularly who write, you get the same amount of emotions and tenderness and involvement. I mean, kids can get involved in the artwork like they do the story. Do you know what I mean? Like you were talking about, Carmen, about that hug, you know, where it pulls a child into the artwork, into
Well,
the
and
story.
Jessica, there's a Daisy, the little boar sitting on the edge of the, my inner like 6 to 9 year old is all over that piece. I mean, all over. I want that on my bed. I want to put it under my pillow. That's what happens.
Everything, that's the basic thing, right? It's emotion, feeling. And like Jessica Bagley is all heart. Her books are just unbelievably
touching.
Yeah. It's like the nerves are right there on the surface, and you cry, so I mean that's true of so many good artists.
If she can make me sympathetic to a hedgehog, okay. I'm not particularly fond of hedgehogs, but you know what I'm saying. But you feel and you feel for them. The kids that are looking at these books are getting inspired the same way. You think about the books you saw when you were a kid, and those pictures are part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing today.
I think one of the things about the art of children's books that's so critical, and for the people who are buying it tonight to know, is for many of our children, this is the first and often the only experience they will have with fine art. For many of them, it will be, could be years, it could be never.
It's almost more important for children to be exposed to great art because that's what they're going to bring throughout their lives. You know, we represent also fine artists and illustrators here.
And Rich, I have to say, your gallery is the one place where it's seamless between fine art and the illustration. Do you know what I mean? And it's a rare thing to see, and it's such a reinforcement for illustrators to see their work hanging with fine artists, which is what it is. It's fine arts in a picture book.
And I think you're seeing here, this is a good segue into the next section, because you're seeing how important art is in the lives of children and the lives of all of us, and it doesn't end. And so I want to look at a couple of more pieces we have here, done by amazing illustrators who continue to be inspired by great art and great artists. So we have work by Evan Turk, who has given us an incredible piece about a mural by Ben Shawn. His book is about Ben Shawn and how important that was in his life, how he was inspired by that. And Chris Rashka, okay, of course, Chris Rashka, also a friend we have in the gallery. I've been watching his work and looking at it for years and seeing people come in and just get blown away by it. Because so many of his books have been inspired by artists, poets, writers. The piece we have for you here is about a futurist musician, Sun Ra. And let's take a look at these pieces and then talk a little bit more about them.
I've always loved his work. I think he's a favorite of a lot of illustrators. He's been one of my favorite artists for a long time. So I think the chance to kind of let loose and be able to really take a deeper dive looking at his artwork was actually a really fun experience for me. The political and social and personal aspects of Ben Shawn's work is something that's always attracted me to his work. And I think that I really appreciate the way that Cynthia Levinson has written the book to show Ben Shawn kind of wrestling with his own position in the world as an artist, because I think that that's something that a lot of artists and creative people do wrestle with, is how do I make my art mean something? And I think that it's important to be able to put messages out there that can speak to the current times. And I think that this book really does that. I loved this one because it's showing Ben Shawn painting what they call the Jersey homestead murals, that full circle moment of him getting to tell his own story as an immigrant. It was an interesting experience of being able to talk to my grandma about this and even show her some of the illustrations. And she said that the drawings of the shtetl reminded her of how her mother used to talk about growing up in the shtetl as well.
The case of the Cosmo biography of Sun Ra, it is kind of the most straightforward, in a way, narrative stories about music that I've done. that text went through a great many changes. It started out as pure poetry, really. Some of his music is almost explosive. It's lyrical, but always goes in directions you couldn't imagine before you heard it. I tried to find that looseness and improvisation through using very kind of ephemeral materials. So the paper that this is painted on is very, very thin rice paper, which I got very, very wet. And then I just layered in lots of transparent paint and then transparent ink and then not quite so transparent stuff on top of it to try to mimic the experience of listening to Sun Ra.
So there you see it, you know, artists inspiring artists. You can have a piece on your wall to inspire your children, inspire yourself. This is a great opportunity. And you're helping the Ezra Jack Keats Foundation, which is bringing along the next generation of great illustrators. Let's pass it forward. Let's all do our part. This is a great organization, wonderful artists. They've all contributed. Weren't those two pieces amazing, folks?
It was lovely. Lovely to see this. You know, Chris was just in my class last week, and my students were blown away by the fact that he works so closely with how he feels and trying to bring the feeling out and listening to the music while you're working and just bringing it out, you know, amazing. And Evan was a student. And so to see the progression of his work, you know, from when he did his first book, it's that they're both working so emotionally.
Chris's drawing looks like it just floated out from the air right onto the paper. And you can't tell what's on top of what. It's all Cosmo is what it is. You know, it's Cosmo biography. And Evan's things are these, that cover, you can't believe how he channeled Ben Shahn.
He's a chameleon, you know. Evan has worked with a lot of different cultures.
What a great evening.
I have so enjoyed talking with you all tonight and looking at the artwork. People, you still have time until 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Some of you are all over the world. Now's your chance to own one of these pieces to help the Keats Foundation. You know, we've been working hard tonight, so we want to see those numbers up there, okay? Make us feel good about what we've done. And it's
they're worth it.
Yeah, sharing, and that'll bring you, one of the things I love about my job is how many people tell me, you know, what other business can you sell a piece of art and then you get thanked and people tell me how much it improved their lives. And so many times people will give a piece of art to their child when, you know, they put it in the nursery, but eventually that child grows up and they get so thrilled. I own that piece of art. That's mine. They'll show you the book. They'll bring it with them to college. They'll end up hanging it in their own home. I mean, this is a lifetime of love. And it starts here. It starts with the artist. It starts with the art. It starts with helping the Ezra Jack Keats Foundation. And let's welcome back Deborah and Ellen to join us here and close out the night and give you a chance to get back to bidding.
Thank you, Rich, so much for doing a fantastic job of supervising all of this and also emceeing. And to Paul Ozolinsky, to Carmen Agrediti and Pat Cummings and Andrea Davis Pinkney. We couldn't have hoped for a better panel and a better review of all of this artwork. They were just wonderful, weren't they, Ellen?
Oh, they were great.
Yeah. I love the fact that Matt James couldn't tell the difference or didn't remember the difference between a somersault and a cartwheel.
Yeah, Rich had to correct him, huh?
I know. It's the child. Yeah.
I want to check how that particular piece is doing because that's one I really want to come to Grumman. So I'm hoping nobody's bidding on it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ellen, because as a matter of fact, that particular piece is a favorite of my husband's. So
Oh,
I think you're
great.
going to have to step outside and have to discuss it with him. He actually does love it, and he wants to watch the bidding on it. It reminds him of our younger daughter.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
always
Well,
wants.
yes, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yep. As a matter of fact, he is keeping a close eye now because this is when the bidding really begins to heat up. This is when the silent bidding becomes competitive. And so I advise all of you out there, this is when you really have to check in on the pieces that you're interested in. I can speak for us on the East Coast. I want to remind you that bidding ends here at 10 p.m.
And it ends here at 9 p.m. And it ends at 8 p.m. Mountain. I don't know. I can't. I have a learning issue with all of the different times.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the sun is setting in the west, so it keeps moving in that direction.
that's right.
So we hope all of you will continue to bid. And I want to remind you all that the proceeds from today's auction will all go towards the monetary prizes that go to the future winners and honorees of the EJK Award. And as we approach the conclusion of the 35th anniversary, we want to acknowledge the fact that we have accomplished a great deal through and with the work of these fantastic writers and authors and illustrators. So we also want to thank, Ellen, some of the people at USM who we haven't mentioned before, like Stacy Mercier, who really has been a fundamental part of everything that we've done.
She really has. She's been a terrific cheerleader and supporter. And that is true of Karen Rowell, the coordinator of the book festival itself, and Dr. Teresa Welsh,
Absolutely.
the chair of the School of Library and Information Science.
Mm-hmm.
They've all contributed time and energy and enthusiasm for the whole thing.
It really has been a fantastic thing for us, your team.
There's one more person from the USM group that we probably ought to mention.
I think so.
Claire Thompson, the EJK coordinator, who sort of keeps us all in line in getting books where they need to go, not begging publishers.
Inviting publishers.
Inviting publishers. I didn't want to use soliciting either. So she does that kind of heavy lifting, and it pays off.
It does pay off. And it's funny, you think of the critical pieces that no one on the outside would understand how critical, but her job really makes everything happen because it's through her that we get the books. And so absolutely, Claire is fantastic. Thank you, Claire.
Yeah. Thank you, Claire.
And I want to give a special thank you, as always, to the EJK team for their perfectionism, their persistence, and their patience. Diana Voza, Robin Stein, Jocelyn McCarthy, and Riot Intraub. A few final reminders. We still have something else coming up. EJK Award winners and honorees panel discussion on April 18th. It's hosted by the Books of Wonder, and you can sign up and save a space by going to the Books of Wonder website.
Better reserve you space now.
It's true, and it's really
it'll be great.
Yes, it will be great. You going to be there, Ellen?
Of course.
I'll see you there.
I am gonna be there.
Good. And also, don't forget to visit the foundation website where you can get information on the coming premiere of an original documentary on the evolution of diversity in children's literature. And don't forget to follow us on social media. And don't forget to follow the de Grummond on social media and visit their website. And I think that it's time for us to say good night.
Good night, Gracie.
I thought you might say that. Good night, Ellen.
Night. It's been a pleasure.
It has been. Thank you all for joining us, and keep bidding.
Thank you.